Good evening, my friends. Tonight I am going to tell you something that will shock you, something that contradicts the entire positive thinking movement that has swept the world. Stop being positive. Stop trying to think positive thoughts. Stop forcing yourself to feel positive emotions. Stop pretending everything is wonderful when it is not. Because positive thinking, as it is commonly practiced, is one of the greatest obstacles to true manifestation. I can see the confusion on your faces. But Neville, you're thinking, haven't you taught us that our thoughts create reality? That we should think about what we want, not what we don't want? Yes, I have taught this. But there is a vast difference between conscious creation through assumption and the desperate, exhausting practice of positive thinking that most people engage in. And tonight, I am going to show you that difference. I am going to teach you what to be instead of positive. And when you understand this, when you make this shift, you will discover a power far greater than positive thinking could ever provide. Let me explain what is wrong with positive thinking. As most people practice it, positive thinking, as taught by the masses, is a reaction to negativity. It is an attempt to cover up negative feelings with positive thoughts. It is forcing yourself to smile when you want to cry. It is repeating affirmations while your heart screams the opposite. It is pretending everything is fine when you are actually drowning. This is not creation. This is suppression. And suppression does not change reality. It only buries your true feelings deeper, where they continue to create from the shadows. Watch what happens when someone practices positive thinking. They wake up feeling anxious about money. So they tell themselves, I am abundant. Money flows to me easily. But underneath the words, the anxiety remains. They are not changing their state. They are covering it up. They look at their empty bed and feel lonely. So they affirm, I am loved. My perfect partner is coming to me. But the loneliness is still there, hidden beneath the positive words. They are not creating love. They are denying loneliness. They receive a medical diagnosis and feel afraid. So they declare, I am perfectly healthy. My body is healing. But the fear persists, masked by positive statements. They are not assuming health. They are fighting sickness. This is the great deception of positive thinking. It keeps you in a state of resistance. You are resisting what is trying to cover it up with what you wish were true. And resistance is not creation. Resistance is struggle. And struggle cannot manifest. Here is what most people do not understand. It is not the words that create. It is the state of consciousness from which the words arise. You can speak the most positive affirmations. You can visualize the most wonderful outcomes. You can paste your walls with vision boards. But if underneath all of this, your consciousness is rooted in lack, in fear, in unworthiness, then lack, fear, and unworthiness is what you will create. The universe does not respond to your words. It responds to your state. And no amount of positive thinking can change your state if you are using positive thinking to avoid feeling what you actually feel. Let me tell you about a woman who came to me exhausted from positive thinking. She had been affirming abundance for 3 years. She had vision boards. She had mantras. She had positive affirmations on sticky notes all over her house. But she was still broke. In fact, her financial situation had gotten worse. I asked her, when you speak these affirmations, what do you feel? She said, I feel like I'm trying really hard to believe them. I feel like if I stop saying them, everything will fall apart. I feel desperate to make them true. There is your problem, I said. You are not creating from abundance. You are creating from desperation disguised as positivity. The universe does not hear your words. It feels your state. And your state is desperation, covered with a thin layer of positive thinking. She began to cry. But if I stop being positive, won't everything get worse? Won't I attract more negativity? No, I replied. Because I am not asking you to be negative. I am asking you to be something far more powerful than either positive or negative. I am asking you to be certain. Here is what you should be. Instead of positive, be certain. Certainty is not positive or negative. Certainty is beyond both. Certainty is the unshakable, knowing that what you desire is already yours. Regardless of current circumstances, regardless of evidence, regardless of what anyone else says or believes. Positive thinking says, I hope this works. I'm trying to believe. I'm focusing on the good. Certainty says, it is already done. There is nothing to hope for because it already is. There is nothing to try to believe because I already know. Do you see the difference? Positive thinking is effort. Certainty is rest. Positive thinking is hoping. Certainty is knowing. Positive thinking looks toward a desired future. Certainty recognizes a present fact. When you are certain, you do not need to be positive. You do not need to cover up negative feelings with positive thoughts. You simply know what is true, and you rest in that knowing. Think about something you are absolutely certain of. Perhaps that the sun will rise tomorrow. Perhaps that your name is your name. Do you need to think positively about these things? Do you need to affirm them? Do you need to convince yourself they are true? No. You simply know them. You are certain. And that certainty requires no effort, no maintenance, no positive thinking. This is the state you must cultivate for your desires. Not positive hoping, but certain knowing. So how do you become certain about something that has not yet appeared in your physical reality? How do you know something is yours when your senses tell you it is not? The answer lies in understanding where reality truly exists. Reality does not exist in the physical world. The physical world is merely a reflection, a shadow, an echo of reality. True reality exists in consciousness. When you desire something, and you assume in consciousness that it is already yours, it is yours at the level of reality that matters. It exists in consciousness, and consciousness is the only creative power. Once something exists in consciousness, its appearance in the physical world is inevitable. It is already done. This is how you cultivate certainty. You recognize that your desire is not something you must bring into existence. It already exists in consciousness the moment you assume it, and consciousness always projects itself into physical form. You are not hoping it will manifest. You are not trying to make it happen. You know it is already accomplished in consciousness, and you are simply waiting for the physical world to catch up and reflect what is already true. This knowing, this certainty requires no positive thinking. It requires no effort to maintain. It is simply a fact that you accept like you accept any other fact of your existence. Let me give you a practical example. The woman I mentioned earlier, who was exhausted from positive thinking, I taught her to replace her desperate affirmations with simple statements of certainty. Instead of saying money is flowing to me with desperate hope, I taught her to say calmly and with finality, money is mine. It is already accomplished in consciousness. The physical appearance is just a matter of time. Instead of trying to feel positive about her empty bank account, I taught her to simply know I am financially secure. This is a fact in consciousness. The numbers will update to reflect this fact. No strain, no force, no desperate positivity, just calm, certain knowing. Within 2 months her income had tripled, but more importantly, she was at peace. She was no longer exhausted from trying to be positive. She was resting in certainty. Now let me clarify something important. What I am teaching you is not faith as opposed to positive thinking. Faith and certainty are the same thing. True faith is not hoping something will happen. It is knowing it is already done. It is certainty about the unseen reality of consciousness. The Bible says faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Most people read this and think faith is about hoping. But look more carefully. Faith is the substance, the actual reality of what you hope for. Faith is the evidence, the proof of what you cannot yet see. Faith is not hoping your desire will manifest. Faith is knowing your desire already exists in consciousness, which is the only reality that matters. This is certainty, and this is what positive thinking tries to be but fails to achieve. Positive thinking is hoping dressed up as confidence. Certainty is knowing that requires no dress. Now you may be wondering if I am not supposed to cover up negative feelings with positive thoughts. What am I supposed to do with them? The answer is simple. Observe them, acknowledge them, and then choose your state of consciousness regardless of them. When you feel anxious about money, do not try to think positive thoughts to make the anxiety go away. That is resistance. Instead, observe the anxiety. Acknowledge it. I am feeling anxious. Then choose your state. But anxiety is not my reality. My reality is abundance, which already exists in consciousness. I choose to rest in that certainty. When you feel lonely, do not force positive affirmations to cover the loneliness. Acknowledge it. I am feeling lonely right now. Then choose. But loneliness is a temporary feeling, not my permanent state. My reality is that I am loved. This is true in consciousness. And consciousness is what creates my experience. Do you see the difference? You are not denying your feelings. You are not suppressing them. You are not covering them up with false positivity. You are simply recognizing that feelings are temporary reactions to temporary circumstances. But your chosen state of consciousness is your true reality. This is mature spiritual practice, not the childish game of pretending everything is wonderful, but the powerful choice to identify with your desired state even while acknowledging current feelings and circumstances. Here is another important truth. Certainty does not require you to feel good all the time. Positive thinking says you must always feel happy, always feel abundant, always feel loving. If you feel bad, you are told you are attracting negativity, and you must immediately shift to positive thoughts. But certainty knows that you can feel however you feel, and it does not change what is true in consciousness. You can feel anxious and still be certain of abundance. You can feel lonely and still be certain of love. You can feel doubt and still be certain of your manifestation. Why? Because certainty is not a feeling. Certainty is a knowing, and knowing is deeper than feeling. You can feel all kinds of ways throughout your day, but underneath every feeling, there can be an unshakable knowing that your desire is already accomplished in consciousness. This knowing does not require constant positive emotion. It simply is. This is tremendously liberating. You no longer have to police your emotions. You no longer have to feel guilty when you have a bad day. You no longer have to force yourself to feel positive when you do not. You simply return to what you know. It is already done in consciousness. That is enough. So if you are not trying to be positive, how do you speak about your desires? How do you think about them? How do you maintain your manifestation without positive thinking? The answer is through calm assertion. Calm assertion is stating what is true in consciousness with the same certainty you would state any other fact. No excitement, no force, no desperate hope. Just simple, calm declaration of what is. Instead of excitedly affirming, I am so abundant, money is flowing to me from everywhere, you calmly assert, I am financially secure. This is established in consciousness. Instead of desperately visualizing your desire for hours, you briefly acknowledge, this is already mine in the dimension where all creation takes place. I claim it as my reality. Instead of constantly checking for signs and trying to stay positive about your manifestation, you simply know it is done. The physical world will reflect this in its own time. Notice the energy difference. Positive thinking is high energy, effortful, often desperate. Certainty is calm, settled, at rest. Which energy do you think is more powerful? Which energy suggests someone who truly has what they desire? If you truly owned a mansion, would you be excitedly affirming, I have a mansion, all day long? No. You would simply live in the mansion. You would take it for granted as a normal part of your life. This is the energy of certainty. This is what you should be instead of positive. Let me give you the ultimate distinction between positive thinking and certainty. Positive thinking tries to create reality. Certainty knows reality is already created in consciousness. Positive thinking is work, certainty is rest. Positive thinking looks to the future. Certainty recognizes the eternal now where all things already are. Positive thinking needs constant maintenance. Certainty is self-sustaining. Positive thinking fears negativity. Certainty is unmoved by temporary feelings and circumstances. Positive thinking is exhausting. Certainty is peaceful. So tonight I want you to make a commitment. Stop trying to be positive. Stop forcing positive thoughts. Stop covering up real feelings with fake positivity. Instead, cultivate certainty. Know that what you desire already exists in consciousness. Know that consciousness is the only creative power. Know that once something exists in consciousness, its physical manifestation is inevitable. Rest in this knowing. Return to this knowing. Live from this knowing. This is not positive thinking. This is something far more powerful. This is the certainty that moves mountains, that parts seas, that manifests the impossible. Be certain. Be unshakable. Be at rest in the knowledge that it is already done. And watch as your world transforms, not through the exhausting effort of positive thinking, but through the calm, certain knowing of one who understands where reality truly exists and how it truly operates. Stop being positive and be certain instead. Thank you, and good evening. As always, Thank you for joining me on this journey into the depths of consciousness. Remember, you are not here by accident. You are here because your soul is ready for this truth. Take these teachings and let them transform not just your mind, but your entire reality. Until we meet again in consciousness, keep assuming your greatness and living from the end of your desires. This is Best of Lectures, and I'll see you in the next video.